Once upon a time, in a forest that was home to many magical creatures, there lived a tiny pixie fairy named Lily. She was no bigger than a thumb and had delicate wings that shimmered in the sunlight. She lived in a small flower house that she had built herself, surrounded by beautiful flowers and plants that she cared for with great love and attention. Lily was a kind and gentle fairy, who loved to help those in need. She spent her days flitting from flower to flower, collecting nectar and spreading pollen, and she sang sweet songs that echoed through the forest. Her music was so beautiful that the other creatures of the forest would stop and listen, entranced by her voice. One day, a young prince named Alexander was riding through the forest, when he heard Lily's beautiful singing. He was amazed, and he searched for the source of the music. When he found Lily, he was struck by her beauty and her kind heart. They talked for hours, and the prince learned about the magic of the forest and the creatures that lived there. He was fascinated, and he promised to come back and visit Lily again. As the days passed, Alexander visited Lily more and more often. They would spend hours talking and singing, and the prince began to fall in love with the tiny fairy. Lily was shy at first, but she soon realized that she had feelings for the prince too. They became inseparable, and they would often go on adventures together, exploring the forest and discovering new things. However, not everyone was happy about their friendship. The queen of the fairies, who ruled over the forest, was jealous of Lily's close relationship with the prince. She saw the tiny pixie as a threat to her own power and authority, and she decided to take action. One day, when Alexander was away, the queen of the fairies sent her minions to capture Lily. They took her to the queen's castle, where she was imprisoned and treated cruelly. The queen of the fairies threatened Lily, telling her that if she did not stay away from the prince, she would be punished severely. Lily was heartbroken. She missed the prince terribly, and she longed to be back in the forest, surrounded by her flowers and her friends. She knew that she had to find a way to escape and return to her home, but she was afraid that the queen of the fairies would catch her. Days turned into weeks, and Lily grew weaker and weaker. She was cold and hungry, and her wings were beginning to wither. She had given up hope of ever escaping, and she thought that she would die in the castle. But one day, when the queen of the fairies was away, Lily heard a familiar voice. It was Alexander, who had come to rescue her. He had sneaked into the castle, and he had brought with him a tiny key that he had found. He unlocked Lily's prison, and together they fled from the castle. As they ran through the forest, the queen's minions chased after them, but Alexander was brave and strong, and he fought them off. They finally made it back to Lily's flower house, where she collapsed, exhausted and weak. Alexander tended to Lily's wounds, and he cared for her with all his heart. He promised that he would never let anything harm her again, and that he would always protect her. From that day on, Lily and Alexander were inseparable. They lived in the forest, surrounded by their friends, and they sang and danced together, happy and free. And the queen of the fairies. She realized that true love is more powerful than any magic, and she allowed the two to be together, happy and content forevermore. And so, the tiny pixie fairy and the prince lived happily ever after, their love and friendship inspiring all those who knew them. The forest was filled with the sweet music of Lily's songs and the sound of Alexander's laughter. And whenever anyone in the forest needed help, Lily and Alexander were there to lend a hand. Years passed, and the prince and the fairy remained together, never once forgetting their love and devotion for each other. They grew old together, and even as their bodies weakened, their love only grew stronger.